Okay, this is the September 30th, 2014 meeting of the Raleigh Conservation Commission. This meeting of the Raleigh Conservation Commission is hereby called to order under authority of MGL, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Town of Raleigh's Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and the Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Bylaw. This meeting is being audio and video recorded. We now call the roll for attendance. Dave DeWanico. Bob Garner.
Here.
Judy Keys.
Here.
Sam Strife.
Here.
Arthur Page.
Here.
Kurt Turner.
Here.
Doug Watson.
Here.
Chairing, and we have a quorum present, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have any administrative?
Oh, yes. If you would be so kind as approval of payroll submittal. For your review, my hours sheet. And also, since I had a couple of vendor builders, if you don't mind them. For office supplies, cell phone, and paper.
Anything else?
No, don't worry. Good thing.
We're reviewing initially the two backup invoices, paper and cell phone. And finally, reimbursement of what I believe is the final invoice from the consultants for Percy and Written, their review of the land off Daniels Road stormwater facilities for the 17th.
Have 10 more about.
And this is just a copy of that invoice here. In the, well, just as an announcement, since it just occurred, I believe you should have the bottom of everything. I received a news release from EPA today about their release of the draft general permit for small municipal separate storm source systems, which they abbreviate MS4, located in Massachusetts. This, I think, is the second or third draft of that permit, released for comment now. We have until, I believe, December, late December 27th or something like that, to comment on it. Apparently just public publicized today at the end of the email, there's a link to it. So it's kind of timely since I'm going to a stormwater meeting tomorrow morning for regional collaboration with the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission on a grant to help prepare for the obligations of the planning commission. Comment period ends December 29th.
Do you have enough knowledgeability about it to provide a brief summary of what they're proposing or changing?
Since it was just released today and I haven't had a chance to even download it or look at it because of preparing for the meeting tonight, no, I'm afraid not. They do give a fairly good summary here on the first page. The last paragraph, the draft permit requires implementation of 6 minimum control measures, which include illicit discharge detection and elimination, public education and outreach, public participation, management of construction site runoff, management of runoff from new development and redevelopment, and good housekeeping in municipal operations. That is kind of the overall framework of their direction in that permit.
Well, I would have a request of you in terms of attending this, and that is that it would appear that these new regulations don't do anything in conjunction with capture of storm runoff. And it's been a concern of mine for some time, that particularly with regard to the Ipswich River watershed, that towns, cities such as Ipswich, along the route of the river, ought to be able to, ought to plan for and make arrangements for capturing heavy, significant runoff. It's one thing to do the kinds of things that they're spelling out here, but there's a dearth of water availability for all the towns along the Ipswich River, for example, and I think that the planning for these kinds of events ought to start to consider to be able to capture and store some of those waters for use under emergency drought circumstances. That's it.
Well, it's timely that they're having this workshop. I don't know that they.
Well, no, we knew this was coming out, and
Did
this
you,
is...
did we know it was coming out now?
No.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Just
No, I
worked out
only-
about right. Yeah.
I only heard a week and a half ago, I heard a consultant sent out an email that indicated, a consulting firm
That they were.
sent out an email that indicated it was forthcoming soon, but no specific dates. And then within the last week, well, just exactly last week, there was commentary that they believed publication was either September 30th or October 1st, because it has to be publicized in the Federal Register.
Anything else before we get started? Let's see, the 745 item here. This is the prime property. That's you, yes. Forgot about that, sorry about that. All right, this is a legal notice for the Raleigh Conservation Commission in accordance with the Wetland Protection Act, General Laws 131, Section 40 is amended, and the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw public meeting will be held on Tuesday, September 30th, 2014 at 7:45 p.m. at Room 5, Town Hall Annex, 39 Central Street, to consider a request for determination of applicability application filed by James Prime for proposed construction of a replacement subsurface sewage disposal system within the 100-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands at 212 Haverhill Street, map 14, parcel 1 in Raleigh. We have a memo.
Yes.
Yes, we do. And have you seen the memo?
Yes, I have.
Okay. we did a soil evaluation on this, right?
Yes,
Approved the soil evaluation not very
Yes.
long ago.
that is
Yeah.
correct, in July, I believe.
It was not that big one.
Maybe off the front.
Yeah, this is a replacement of a failed
Right.
septic system that services a single-family dwelling.
All right, anything you want to add to the memo, Brent? Looks like a pretty routine
Right.
situation. It's
Well-
very flat, is what I remember.
Yes, except this was the kind of unique situation where the delineated bordering vegetated wetlands comes up into the maintained lawn, approximately anywhere from 16 to 20 feet from the edge of the forested or undeveloped portion of the lot. So unfortunately, the plan which was prepared does not show the edge of clearing, so one doesn't, from looking at the plan, doesn't quite understand the fact that the edge of the woods is actually back away from, well, in this case, towards the west from where the delineation. Now, that pictometry image is a very good example of how the boundary lines are not registered with the aerial photo, because actually the driveway and where the system are going to be installed are actually within feet, mere feet
Yeah, right.
of the side property boundary, yet the imagery using the assessor's overlay put on top of the pictometry shows the driveway mid-center in the frontage, and that is an inaccurate representation, but that is what happens when they aren't registered, as they say, from one layer to the other. Usually they look like they fit a lot better. In this case, it's a total misfit.
Yeah. Anything you'd like to add?
Well, I'm just here for Mr. Prime, and it was designed to keep it as far away from the wets as possible, and we got a grading easement from the neighbor, so we could keep it right over it.
Right, pretty much had to. Yeah. You've reviewed the eight conditions?
Yes, I have.
They're all acceptable to you?
Yes.
Any members of the public wish to be heard on this? Any commissioners have anything to add? Brent, anything else you want to say? All right, in that case, I need a motion to close the hearing and issue a negative determination with option number 3 with the 8 conditions stated in the memo, all standard conditions. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. And all against? And the motion carries. What's that?
Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you very much.
Looks a lot better already across the street.
Oh, down here.
Yeah.
Stuart?
Yes.
Stuart, could you wait around a little bit?
Oh, sure.
You wanna go make your copies?
That's okay.
street, access to that is very limited on both sides. There's not a lot of places to put cars.
When you're listening to the video, it's starting to
So did you get close to getting seated or not?
I don't think so. That's 6 cases.
Pretty often happens.
So, there's your copy, and this page is the special conditions, and here's the original, those listed boxes.
Thank you very much. Thanks again, folks.
Yeah, good night. Oh, no. I've always said that all the lawyers across the street from the courthouse should just tear down their ramshackle offices and build a parking structure. And they wouldn't have to practice law and then just sit there and take in the 10 bucks every day. Well, that would make perfect sense. All right, this is the 8 o'clock item on the agenda. This is a legal notice of the Raleigh Conservation Commission in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, General Laws 131, Section 40 as amended, and the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw. A public hearing will be held on Tuesday, September 30, 2014 at 8 p.m. at the Room 5 of the Town Hall Annex at 39 Central Street to consider a notice of intent application filed by Barry Wilder for proposed construction of a replacement subsurface sewage system, possibly within the 100-foot buffer zone of the following: bordering vegetated wetlands, salt marsh, and ACEC, all at 151 Stackyard Road, map 37, parcel 15 in Rowley. And Commissioner Keys has recused herself from this hearing.
Hi,
Hi.
my name's Dan Johnson. I'm representing the homeowner of the property at 151 Stackyard Road. Stackyard, if you don't know, is pretty much the last road on the right on 1A heading into Newbury. And you go down the gravel road, it's roughly about a half mile down on the right-hand side. It's a kind of a little, almost a peninsula surrounded completely by salt marsh and on both sides. Right now, you have an existing residential property which has a cesspool in the back, which unfortunately, which failed. You have an existing well right here, almost smack dab in the middle of the property. This is the existing wetland. We have the elevation 10, which is the ACEC area critical area concern. And then we have the FEMA 100-year flood, which is elevation 13. The new leaching area, where we did the 2 soil tests, is fortunately out of the ACE 100, elevation 10 and elevation 13. But you can see the 100-foot buffer. This is the only area within the property that's out of the 100-foot buffer of the wetland. Everything else is within the ACEC and everything as far as that goes. The well itself, which is one of our key also environmental things, is 100 feet from the leaching area. So we couldn't fit the leaching area in there for obvious reasons because we need to keep the 100 feet from the well. So we found this area here. Fortunately, it's just beautiful sand. Groundwater was deep enough because we're up on a higher area of this little peninsula there. So we're able to replace a 3-bedroom system with the new 1,500-gallon septic tank, a new leaching area that meets all of Title V regulations and Raleigh Board of Health regulations, except for the 100-foot offset to the wetland, where the closest point is about 71 feet on this side. We're about 86 feet from over here and 83 feet on this side here. So we kind of fit it in the middle, kind of divide and conquer, but yet at the same time, we just couldn't physically keep the 100-foot buffer zone. So that's pretty much the only place we could put it. based on the 100-foot radius of the well, and try to keep at least 50 feet from the Title V from the wetlands, but not quite the 100 feet for the Conservation Commission and Raleigh Board of Health offset to a leaching area.
Where's the house on that map?
It's right down in this area here, if you look.
Okay, I can see it now.
Right there.
Thank you,
You have a driveway that comes in, the circular driveway right in this area here off the property.
Have you, did you see Brent's memo?
I don't think I've read the memo, no.
Just take a quick look at it.
Was it attached to the email? It could have been, I just might not have read it.
Oh, I pasted it right into the body of the
Yeah,
email.
that's my fault.
Okay, yeah, just take a minute, that's all right. Just wanna make sure that there aren't any,
Well, I think he went over pretty much everything with us at
yeah,
that time.
I'd like to
Right.
make sure that people have seen what we're seeing. Thank you, Brent. Brent, while he's looking it over, whereabouts was that mountain that you saw? Is that over-
Actually, along here.
Along the driveway?
Edge of the driveway in the bordering vegetated wetlands and on the edge of the salt marsh.
Mhm. There's two sides to it, just so you know. All right, so, Brent, first question I'd have for you is that you indicate here that cleanup activities have been initiated. Do you know that, or is that,
Yes, yeah.
that's underway?
It was obvious from when I was out to the site that there could have been a fair amount of removal, but there was still more to go. So.
So, Brent, can you address the comment in your memo, the commission may wish to discuss if posts with signage are appropriate for the forested portion of the property? What are you getting at there?
Well, the best place I can indicate it is over on this side of the property.
Okay, so that's
It's undeveloped, there is, mostly within this area here, directly surrounding the structure, that's maintained lawn and landscaped area, but as soon as you basically get down below contour 13, I think, or 12, on this side of the property, it's all wooded, which we have, well, actually, I should have been showing you the pictometry, so you can pretty much see this whole area down here. And it has a relatively light understory in regards to that it's fairly easy to walk through, so it isn't thick shrub sapling layer. And typically in the commission's efforts to put some type of marker that delineates it's a restricted no cut, no disturbance zone, this would be an area that I would recommend consideration of the possibility of 3 posts, field determined where they stand, because otherwise you don't have any idea that it's a restricted area. And then because of the development of the property, my suggestion would be just to have the no cut, no disturbance zone in that area be variable and just maintain along the edge of where the shrubbery and brush hasn't been converted into maintained lawn.
Yeah.
In other words, work with the established way the property has been developed, but put an appropriate restriction in that establishes where the limits of activity could be, so there is some kind of filter strip, especially along the driveway area there. Although we do have the knotweed situation there, which is then the reason for my recommendation to allow suppression activities to occur. If we incorporate that into a permit and make that, you know, a permanent ability of the property owner, they can suppress the knotweed to keep it from spreading and overtaking that whole property.
Comments by commissioners?
Is any of this property on stilts?
Excuse me?
Is any of this property on stilts, the house?
No.
I didn't see, they all have full foundation or
Okay,
frost walls.
I didn't think so, but the Boston Globe this morning and on the news at 6 o'clock tonight, there was a lot of discussion about some people are proposing that Boston start making plans for canals, because of the rising sea levels that most intelligent people are expecting over the next, remainder of the century. And this property is an extremely vulnerable spot with regard to such things, and you may wanna consider that in the future. I just mentioned it.
Right. If I may speak about the signs, I
Sure.
have a number of properties in the wetlands and in the ACEC areas. And I don't need signs there to know what I can do and what I can't do.
Well, I know
I've
you
lived here all
don't.
my life.
And it's never, you know, it's never the people who come before us that need
Right.
to be reminded.
Well, for my lifetime, I just don't want to be looking at signs like that.
They're pretty unobtrusive.
I'm just stating I don't feel I need them.
Yeah, and I'm sure you don't. And I'm sure you intend to own this property for a long time. It's the next people that are typically the issue for
Who
us.
pays for these signs?
You do. There's not a lot of cost involved.
No, you pay for the post, we provide the signs
We give you
free
the
of
sign.
charge.
Yeah, the post is up to you, but the little sign comes from us.
And actually, it's for other people who enter onto your property, landscapers or other contractors who aren't as environmentally aware as you are, being the owner of the property and being a longtime resident in the Great Marsh and Raleigh. We know you have an appreciation and a respect for the values of our resource areas. But we also feel that it's a precautionary measure because we've had a number of property owners who have had to bear the burden of subcontractors or landscapers coming onto their property who weren't as aware of the characteristics of the individual property that they go to perform various tasks on. Sometimes they get carried away, or they feel that it's a quick fix to dump all their yard trimmings over there in the woods because nobody would know that.
I just never heard of it before, and I've lived here all my life.
Yeah.
You've done it before?
Oh, yeah, almost.
You haven't been watching our television?
Yeah, all similar situations, pretty much. We have a, well, I was gonna say a lifetime supply, but we have an ample supply of these little signs. They go on top of the post, you won't notice them. It's not like a big sign that says, keep out. I don't think you'll find it terribly intrusive to look at. What are they made out of, aluminum? Yeah. Just a little aluminum
4-inch
disc that
diameter
goes on
disc.
top of a 4x4.
Yeah, just a little bigger than the cookie,
Yeah,
but they'll last longer.
right. Yeah. And anything else you'd like to add, Bobby?
Nothing, all I know is, as far as I'm concerned, it's totally cleaned out. We've taken maybe 14 truckloads of lumber and junk off the property, and
Really?
iron and steel, and we've taken a lot of wood out, off the property. And what Brent is saying is true. It was unbearable, but it was the first thing on my agenda to do.
Okay. Well, that's good. Yeah, that property's been in the same ownership for a long, long time, right? Any commissioners want to add anything? Brent, anything else you want to bring up?
No, I don't believe so.
Well,
Yes, one thing.
Yes.
We did discuss, and as a site-specific adjustment, there's much more erosion control shown in the depiction of the plans than probably needs to really be practically installed. And basically, just to explain to the commission, right now, the silt sock is shown as paralleling the road, curving into the entrance of the driveway, with then a subsequent second line of silt sock on the opposite side of the driveway. And from looking at the site characteristics and understanding that there isn't a real dense herbaceous layer, and there seems to be plenty of opportunity to just kind of do a fish hook, a J hook or an arc of silt sock around where the field is being excavated.
Okay.
That not only will that probably be a much more practical implementation, but I think it like will reduce in at least half the footage of erosion control. Not that that's, you know.
No, it makes sense, given the.
The idea is to put it in a practical manner and
Yeah.
and not be too excessive in implementing it, and we decided in looking at.
Okay.
But yet it'll also include excavation of the septic tank and the connecting pipeline.
Well, yeah, although where the tank is going, it would have to go across two, well, basically a whole arc of the driveway. It would, yeah, it actually has very little opportunity, and we also discussed, Mr. Johnson, who was suggesting that there's gonna be possibly a reorientation of the tank
Right, moving
in
another
order
2 feet or so
to,
this way.
yeah, in order to just give it a better alignment and not to be so disruptive of,
Well, I just didn't want it to be lost in the deployment of the
No.
silt sock, that's all.
Okay. No, it makes
the
sense.
idea there was that whatever extra length they have, they can have a loose 20-foot coil, and they just lay that down across the driveway there to,
Works
you know, if conditions warrant it, so.
All right, well, that may save you a little money, but a little less silt sock. Okay, anything else anybody wants to add? Anything else, Brent? Any members of the public wish to be heard on this? Not just you, Bobby. In that case, I think I would need a motion to close the public hearing and issue an order of conditions containing the conditions typical for residential subsurface sewage disposal system with the special conditions that we just discussed. And let's see, do I have that motion?
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Quick.
Well, I got
What's in that coffee? There's a motion and a second, all in favor? Aye, and all against? And the motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck with the property, though, yeah, I'm sure it will look great.
Thank you. Well, yeah, let me see one thing. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
This is the 8:15 item on the agenda. This is a legal notice of the Raleigh Conservation Commission in accordance with the Town of Raleigh Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Bylaw. As amended, a public hearing will be held on Tuesday, September 30th, 2014 at 8:15 PM at the Town Hall Annex, 39 Central Street, to consider a stormwater management permit application filed by Carl Sear for proposed construction of a gravel access road, tree cutting, stumping, grading, and establishment of lawn and garden, all at 128 Daniels Road, map 9, parcel 32, lot 1 in Raleigh. Folks here on that?
Yep.
Okay, you can come forward if you'd like.
Oh, sure.
You, Mr. Sear?
Yes, I am.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so I believe we have a memo on this. Have you seen the memo from Brent?
Probably has not. Yeah, is that the email you just sent me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
What would
did,
be-
I did see it.
You did read it, okay, great, great. So let's just take a moment here and I'll remind ourselves what's in here.
comment memo from the planning department.
Oh, okay. We should probably read this into the record. All right, this is a memo from planning board from town planner Kurt Baker, so from the planning board to us, Conservation Commission, regarding this stormwater management application dated 9/29/2014. I'll read it into the record. The subject property is a single-family residential use located 128 Daniels Road, where the site consists of approximately 7.7 acres that is zoned outlying district. OD zoning district defined by the zoning law, section 4.4.1 is a, quote, area of low-density residence, recreation, conservation, agricultural, and similar uses compatible with the rural area. The applicant is proposing an after-the-fact approval for the removal of 60,000 plus or minus square feet of woodland area to extend the access driveway and to create additional lawn space and garden area as an accessory use to the existing residential dwelling. Be advised that the current use exists by right and requires no approval from planning board. Because the existing use is a rural residential single-family use and the proposed improvements, lawn and garden space, are consistent with uses accessory to a rural residential use, no additional action or permitting from the planning board is required. I would only make the advisory recommendation that the Conservation Commission should require from the property owner what is necessary to address stormwater quantity and quality impacts associated with land disturbance and tree canopy removal, and also to comply with town's stormwater management and erosion control bylaw. I will update the planning board on this application at their next meeting, which is scheduled for Wednesday, October 15th, 2014 at 7:30 p.m. Thank you for the opportunity to review and provide input. And I would say that that's the same conclusion that this board has reached, or at least our agent and the chairman have reached, is that this application and your permitting is only under stormwater management. There aren't any other issues implicating planning or zoning or conservation, strictly a stormwater management application. So there are no, my understanding is there are no buildings involved in this, just simply clearing of land and dealing with the erosion resulting therefrom. So the first point I'd like to bring up regarding Brent's memo is that typically our bylaws require professionally prepared plans and a stormwater permit plan, and in this situation with no buildings, the suggestion has been made that we might waive those requirements, and just for my part, I would say that makes a lot of sense to me. Any other comments on that aspect of it? So what we have here is a sketch plan. Looks like it's based on the system plan drawn by Thomas Mineta for the septic system in, what was the date on this? 2008, 2009 or so. Upon which Brent has made a few notes, and I guess you have also made a few notes. Okay. So at least from my perspective, this is sufficient for us to make an intelligent assessment of what you're doing. And I take it you would agree, Brent?
Yes. We worked with Mr. Seer, and provided examples of similar projects that had come before the commission. Mr. Seer actually prepared a construction and erosion control plan for his activities, which addresses all the components of his proposed activities.
Anything you'd like to add, Mr. Seer?
No, not really. I mean, I left, no one can see it. There's no visibility from anybody except for the access road to get back to the property.
Right.
And I left between 30 and 50 feet of wooded land between the access dirt road and the next person's property. So
Yeah.
there's a pretty wide buffer of largely wooded property. So trying to stay with the area.
when were you last up there?
Thursday, the 25th, I think.
Next week.
Yeah.
So this, the clearing was last summer?
Yes.
Midsummer,
Yeah,
if
July,
I remember
July
right.
2013.
So what are we seeing for stabilization so far? Is there vegetative cover, or what's going on out there?
Well, yes and no. The access road is probably about 3/4 complete. Wood chips were utilized for cover as well as some straw wattle at one particular low point. There is some establishment of vegetation, but actually Mr. Sear and I were talking about the possible acquisition of what's called a slope stabilization mix that Essex County Co-op, I know, is one local source of. There's probably other sources like Northeast Nurseries and stuff. Because there were some areas of the slope that we could see were a little thin, but there was no eroding, no gullies, no rills being formed. Basically, the site is stable. We could see one portion where the road transitions into the unfinished part, where it starts proceeding up a slight grade, that there had been some movement of materials down within the portion that's going to be the roadway, but again, it wasn't anything excessive, and there's a pile of wood chips there, and plus the work that needs to proceed is going to generate some more wood chips and materials. So, you know, like any project that has a proposed large square footage disturbance, due to the stumping that's going to occur, there would just have to need to be attention to areas. The good thing about the sketch plan that's been provided is that plan has topographic relief on here, so you can actually see. We identified another portion over here on the, let's see, where's the north arrow? Yeah, the southern portion of the property where the terrain kind of gradually pitches in, and we just talked about that would need to be an area, once it was stumped and graded, that was an area that possibly one would need to do sort of the terracing or the subsequent rows of wattle or silt sock, 30 or 40 foot spacing in order to slow down the water, because normally the water will
Like
just,
check dams,
well, yeah,
kind of like,
Yeah.
acting with them.
but because wattles and silt sock are not very high, the manufacturer's recommendation on long slopes is to use it in intermediate, so steps, so to speak, both to slow down the water, because that's an area where it would normally be concentrated due to the two different inward pitches of the terrain. So, but currently there aren't any issues, and there's a fair amount of vegetation that had come in, pokeweed that we were looking at out there, as well as some goldenrod and some thistle and stuff, but the project is not completed because the stumping hasn't been done, and also the cutting of the wood in this corridor, which is going to connect to the rear yard.
Okay. That part hasn't been cut yet?
That is
No.
correct.
All right, and you've talked over with Mr. Sear what the conditions typical for a gravel access road and landscaping activities might look like in this situation? And a lot
Well,
of
not
it-
specifically, but he has pretty much identified things in his construction and erosion control plan in terms of, monitoring, looking at the slopes and stuff, and it's,
All right.
Okay, is there any, have you considered whether we need to have no cut areas down in this area, or is that all wooded?
well, this is not under jurisdiction of the wetlands bylaw, so
Okay.
this,
It's kind of hard to remember that, it's just stormwater. We don't see all that many just stormwater applications.
Yeah, it's no wetlands.
There's no wetlands.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, there are some wetlands off the property, but he didn't perform any delineations, and as Mr. Sears stated, he left 30 to 40 foot. And there wasn't anything that I could see that came right up to any of the stone walls that were forming this boundary, so it was
All right, any other commissioners have any comments? Members of the public wish to be heard besides Mr. Sear? In that case, unless there's anything else anyone wishes to add, I would need a motion to close the public hearing and issue a stormwater management permit containing the full conditions for the gravel access road and landscaping activities of this type. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Just slow it
Second.
down.
I counted to 3 this time.
All right, still one vote. Is there a second? Judy already seconded. All right. There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And all against? And the motion carries. And you are all set.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm all set?
I'll be sending that to you.
Okay.
It will need to be recorded.
Okay.
And,
All right.
same license.
Thanks everyone.
Okay.
Have a great evening.
Great. Next on the agenda, is we expecting anybody to come to be here for this one? Nobody here yet.
56, we have a request for continuance.
Oh, okay. From Liz, yes, okay, that's who was here. I knew we had somebody there last go around. So this is a email from Clearwater Environmental, Liz Dupre, to the commission dated today, which reads as follows. Hi Brent, we will be getting written comments from planning tomorrow and we'll begin revisions. I understand they are only just now having their stormwater review done. So we will hope to be ready for the following meeting. Can you continue this, please? Clearwater Environmental. The next meeting is October 21st. That sounds optimistic to me if they haven't even started their stormwater review, but we can continue, that's what she requested, so let's do that. So do I have a motion to continue this matter to the October 21st meeting?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Okay.
And all against, and the motion carries. So I'm pretty sure we're expecting, what's his name, Mr.
Mr.
Santana?
Santana.
Yeah, on that.
Yeah,
matter,
we were,
right?
he had told me.
Okay, but we're still early, so. Anything else we need to do? You're Mr. Sabatini, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we could do you, since that's not an agenda, I mean, it's not a timed item, it's just an administrative item.
Awesome.
You all right with that? Okay.
I'm all up for one, really.
And you are Michael Sabatini, I believe, right? Yes. So we're here on what's listed at 9 o'clock as a continued matter of enforcement order for land off Main Street, Lot A, map 26, parcel 26, lot 1, Michael A. Sabatini restoration plan. So, let's see, the last time we were here, last time this was on the agenda, rather, it was continued to tonight. I don't believe anyone appeared on behalf of the landowner. And,
You're the landowner.
well, on behalf of Mr. Sabatini. Am I right? Is that right? And so we continued it to this date. We have, just to recap where we're at on this, I believe we have seen we have seen a restoration plan and asked for some revisions to it, but we have not seen the revisions to it. Is that right?
Correct.
All right. So, Mr. Sabatini, where are we at?
I made a couple of requests, several, 4 actually, to be exact, that you guys show up at the house. I understand when I watched you on video last time, you said no, and you try to get everybody else to rally and don't show up at my house. My suggestion, that's accurate, I watched the video. My suggestion is that this is not gonna get resolved if you guys show up at my house. I'm all for transparency, I'm all for accuracy, I'm all for facts. I have nothing to hide. Sitting in a room like this, we're not gonna get resolved. You wanna see the accurate, you wanna see what's really going on out there? Take a walk out there, go see for yourself. Sitting around here talking to us, not gonna get anything resolved. I feel very strongly about that. I listen to what you have to say. It's not just about the field, it's about what's going on. And I think we all know that.
It's not about the fields at all, it's about the.
It's about everything.
It's about the restoration.
Right, we can talk about the fields when you get there, all your phragmites. But when it gets to my lane, I'll just bulldoze them over anyways.
So,
So,
can you address the enforcement order?
right, so I said,
Yeah.
I strongly suggest, so on the issue of the enforcement order, nothing's really gonna happen until you guys show up at my house. I want transparency, I want accuracy, and I want facts, and we're not getting them here.
Well, what would you have us see that would justify a site visit?
Okay.
What's there that we need
Well,
to see?
okay, you wanna talk about it, well, I listened to the movie last week. You talk about the duff. There was no excavation, there was snow and ice on the ground, so when I hear him talking about, oh, you removed all the duff. The rose bush root bases are still there, of the roses that we cut down, the prickle bushes, I call them roses. So if you go look at them, you'll see they're there. The root systems are still there. So no one dug through the snow and ice and removed duff. You talk about aesthetics, you think it's all about aesthetics. The invasive species, bittersweet, poison ivy, are choking all the trees. You know what? The Bradstreet planted that tree there, George did in the 60s. I took the vines down. A lot of trees were dying on that property. You go there, you'll see them. You don't want to see them, that's your business. When you go there, and you actually look at the facts, you'll see that the vines that I cut down are still dangling from the trees. The Bradstreet property, this guy's telling everybody it's not a farm. You know what, when somebody asks you a question, Brent, I strongly suggest you say, I'll table
Excuse
that
me.
question.
Excuse me,
Well, hang on,
address the commission, not Brent.
I'll address you, then you take care of your agents. Is that
Address the
understood?
commission, please.
Okay. When somebody asks a question, you don't just throw out some random answer because you feel like it. You say, you know what, Doug, that's a good question. Arthur, I'll look into that, I'll see if it is a farm, I'll get back to you. You don't randomly say, oh, it's not a farm, I checked into it. I'm tired of the lies, listen, I'm tired of the lies going on around here. Now, you talk about, you know, you're gonna strong arm me, draw a line on the sand. Okay, to protect your property, you guys say. With all due respect, gentlemen, you guys are out of touch. It's not your land. It's the townspeople's land. It's the town of Rowley's land. When you stand up here and you grandstand saying, you're gonna draw a line in the sand to protect my land, meaning yours, you guys are out of touch.
Excuse me.
Yes, go ahead.
We are a commission for the people,
Right.
of the people.
When you talk, thank you.
It is our property? No. We control the property.
You help
So
manage the
people
property.
don't- So people, yes,
You
manage.
manage.
So
It's
people
not
don't
your
go
property.
crazy over it.
Okay.
We only say that because we represent the people.
Right, the board represents and works
Of
for
which you
all the
are.
residents of the town of Raleigh.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
You included.
Thank you. I'm about transparency, and I want to come to my property to see for yourself what's going on. You know what? I have nothing to hide. That's going to solve a lot of things. It's going to solve a lot as a resident of this Raleigh.
You haven't answered my questions.
What's that? I'll get to that.
You'll get to it.
I'm getting right up to it, believe me.
So what are we gonna learn if we go to your property?
You're going to see,
This is a
you're going to see
volunteer-
exactly
sir.
what I did. I know you
Sir.
guys are busy.
This is a volunteer board.
I know, you're
People
busy.
don't get paid to do that. I'm not
I
going to
get it.
suggest they go out there unless there's a good reason to go. I haven't heard it yet, I'm waiting for it.
Well, the area in question is along the banks of the man-made watering hole.
Beginning in 1960s, the area included beautiful gardens, a diving board, beach area, and good fishing. After years of neglect, it is now an overgrown piece of shit, being choked out by several invasive species, including Phragmites, bittersweet, and poison ivy. I removed the bittersweet and poison ivy and saved the town's large maple tree that Mr. George Bradstreet planted about 50 years ago. It was the centerpiece of their garden. As it turned out, when you did the engineering, it's like 2 feet over the land onto the town's side of the property, not my side. Having done that, you find me in violation and I must restore the area. After hiring Michael DeRosa and spending $2,000, I come to a certain realization after meeting out there, and I really put thought into this. Specifically, you want me to do all this work, thousands of dollars worth of work in a confined area, yet right there where I stop, there's 10 feet tall of invasive species, 50 feet here and another 10 there. It's grown back 7 feet in less than 4 months. So why would I actually spend any money restoring anything, we'll use the word restore, something that's already a piece of crap, that's only going to get destroyed by the invasive species anyways in a short period of time. Now, so having thought about that, I am not obligated to restore anything to a better condition than the condition I found it in. You can't bully me into spending thousands of dollars on something the town did not have in the first place. For example, I'm not obligated to remove the invasive species because I didn't put it there. I'm not obligated to replace any shrubs because I didn't remove any shrubs. I'm not putting any duff back because I didn't dig through several inches of snow and ice and take anything out. Logically, let me think about this. If you want me to spend thousands of dollars to restore an area to pristine condition, yet immediately next to it are the walls of invasive species, which most assuredly will consume and eat anything in its path. Now the town should have it the way it was, not any better. I agree. You'll be happy to know that the invasive species have grown back 6 to 7 feet in less than 5 months. Just the way it was before I saved George Bradstreet's 50-year-old, 54-year-old maple tree, somewhere around 1960 when he planted it. These are the letters I wrote to you. These are the copies of my farm, which you guys say I'm not a farm. And these are the pictures of what it looks like now. These are the flowers that Mrs. Bradstreet planted there years ago. They're all still coming through. There's your Phragmites. That's your side of the field. There's more Phragmites. This is what you're looking at. You can't even tell what was there and what's not there. What I can show you though, I really don't know how you guys get away with this, but here's my other good picture. This is what he's tearing down, just so he can get into my land, because he realizes now he's been trespassing on my land to go to it. So he's in there ripping down the vegetated wetlands, cutting down the cedar trees, so we can go see what I'm doing. This is 2 feet away from the water line. Yet he's ripping everything out. This is him cutting a trail in, cutting through all the trees, just to make his way down to the vegetated borderland wetlands to see what's going on. And one of them actually shows the stake of the property line. Should look for a little red stake in there. Right here. There's the property line. The line actually goes up at an angle like that. That's him coming through the tunnel, and the water's right here. One way looks through the tunnel, and the other way shows you the path he's cutting in. And you're worried about what I'm doing. He damaged more than I ever did. At least I saved the trees and took down the bittersweet and the chokers.
So these here are all vines, all the stuff that you...
Yes, sir. This is the edge, well, you got the one that shows the stick on it, the stake, because the stake is like right on that corner. Right there. This is like a little too close. That's that. I know you guys are
Now,
busy.
is this the type of vegetation that's all on your property? This is just ragweed and,
Oh, yeah. But I've been mowing it down. I've been trying to stop it. I just didn't touch that side of the property, but I did do the center section.
how long had this sat, unkept?
Well, I've only had it for, you asking me?
Yeah,
I only had it for 2 years, and the
Before
town
that?
had it for Mrs. Bradstreet, I think from 2005 or 6.
because it was a few years ago, when their Bradstreets were there, that was a hayfield, because I went down, I used to hay it.
Yes. When I acquired it, the Board of Selectmen asked me to continue to allow the Colbys to hay it. I won't say that was a condition, because they can't make them, but they were very outgoing to say what I considered allowing to keep hay in the field, and I said yes. And that's why it remains a 61A farm. I do have goats and sheep and chickens and stuff there now, and the apple orchards, I've been restoring the apple orchards as well.
Now, what do you plan on doing with the fields? Make them hay fields again?
I already went back to Colby's and Herrick, and they're gonna split it. One's gonna do a corn and one's gonna do a hay. I don't know which one comes first, but they say they're gonna do one and one.
You mean alternating years or side by side?
They say they do it in the same year, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I don't know which one comes first, but
What they
that's
do
what he
is, in the
said.
center, they usually do it, the Savages and the other places I'm familiar with, they'll put that in the center areas, they'll have the corn, have the hay around the outside. Because the corn doesn't do good, it gets right next to the woods because of the, animals.
So I've been pushing the sumac back, and the sumac that went down the center section, where the big white birches are, there's some really, really huge white birches, and I know they're real rare, it's like 90 feet tall. I climbed probably 40, 50 feet up in that tree to get all the vines off it.
And they had vines on them too?
I've been pulling them down, so I saved the white birch and the gray birch, which are really in the center of the property. I don't know if anybody's been there, the center section, and they kind of use it for a little dump there too, and they clean that out. So there's a field, sumac, and a dump where the white birches are, and then another field. So I've taken the center section down mostly.
Where is that in relationship to the barn?
The barn is
Down the hill?
is over here on the right, and the fields are mostly behind, straight back from the house, straight back.
But then, so you're talking straight, more or less straight back from the house then?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Any commissioners wish to comment on any of Mr. Sabatini's remarks? I would just say this, the problem that I have with your position is that it seems to be based on the notion that what you removed was strictly invasive species. But you removed it, how do we know that? We can't know that. And that isn't all invasive species down there, there's plenty of other plant communities besides invasives. So the problem is, you say you want to restore it only to the condition it was in, but we don't know what condition it was in. I know that if you clear, we all know that if you clear land and expose it to sun and you take out the natural vegetation, you get invasives. That's what you've got there, but that's also what you did.
Well, I've already seen the reports, you might even have them, from DeRosa, that says exactly what came out of there. The only one other, there was one like a half caliber ash. I really don't know what an ash is, but you wrote in there, there's an ash. If you went there, what I was trying to say to you before, I'm sure when Brent went there in the wintertime, it was flat, because I was just leaving for the Dominican then, and that was probably April, if not early March. When you look now, see the prickle bushes and the prickle bushes, the bittersweet, the poison ivy, you go there now, you see the little stub left on the ground, and then you see the prickle bush is now 6 feet tall. But you move your hand, you'll see it. Oh, there's the little stump he cut where the lop is, right there. You see it on the ground. You'll see every stump, if you want to call it a stump. Every prickle bush, every piece of poison ivy that's growing back up now, because I haven't done anything the rest of the year, that's still spinning around. You'll see the bases of the poison ivy, you'll see the bases of the bittersweet, you'll still see them hanging from the trees.
Well, I mean, all we can go on.
That's part
is
of why I say go there and look, because then you'll look on the ground, you'll see it.
All we can go on is the restoration plan that we have partially been provided. The restoration plan, of course, does not provide for replacing invasive species. It provides for replacing a plant community. That's the standard you gotta meet.
Right, because that's the, make it better than what it was, even though it wasn't there.
Well,
So, and we know it wasn't there.
well,
We
don't
know
it wasn't
we know
there.
all the things on that list are store-bought.
No, see, that's the problem,
Purchases.
is we don't know what wasn't there because you took it out. And we know that this was town land, and it's our job as the custodians of the town land to have it restored in accordance with the restoration plan.
Right, so if you go, my point is exactly that. When you go there, you're gonna see there's no digging. There's no duff. There's no shovel holes.
Of course, there isn't now.
There wasn't then either. Well, that was,
Well,
my
so
point
you
is
say,
that was
but-
that. When you went there and inspected, there was 5 inches or 6 inches of snow on the ground. No one done anything back in early April.
Enforcement order in May.
No, and he inspected it in early April. 'Cause that's when the first phone call came. So I was down in the Dominican, somewhere around April 6th or 7th.
No, the first photographs that we saw of this were, there was no snow on the ground, there was no ice.
When he inspected it, he went there in April. And there was snow on the ground. You were there, what, April 7th?
April 10th, there's no snow on the ground. You can look at it. Spring. I mean,
What is it, then show you pictures, what does it show? Nothing on the ground, nothing dug up.
and no snow, and no ice. In fact,
Nobody
a
said there was
kayak
any excavation, if you knew what the term duff meant. Duff is the term for the dead leaves and other organic matter that hasn't thoroughly decayed and already become incorporated into the A layer of the topsoil.
Which is fine. So if you're worried about planting a plant back, that was removed. I'm telling you, there's no holes dug, because nothing was removed. You're worried about bark mulch and and weeds and leaves blowing around from the trees falling down.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, there's nothing there, and I don't know anything.
Well, the restoration plan that we asked you to have prepared provides for restoring the natural community, not the invasive community.
Right,
you
and
know, that's
And it
what
was
Mr.
there,
DeRosa-
so I don't owe I don't have to go there and remove anything that's been there by itself. I'm not obligated to show up and do the town's job of, let me go there and I'm gonna take out everything that was been there by an act of God in the weather, in the woods, taking over a forest, because no one's done any work over the years.
But you already did that.
The problem is, you already did it,
Yeah. You already did remove that stuff.
No,
and it's
I
not,
cut down the weeds at the base.
well,
Nothing's dug up. So now you want me to go up there and dig out all the vines out of the ground and remove all
no, actually,
the vines and the root systems.
actually, just want you to comply with the restoration plan that you,
Right, and
Paid
remove,
for
the-
and
and
provided to
remove the invasive species, and I don't allow you to do that.
well, that's what the order requires you to do. You have a restoration plan. This issue came up in May, That's,
Yeah.
what's that, 5 to 9, 6 months almost.
I understand, but
That's
I'm
a
not
long time.
obligated to give you a better situation. And that's my position. I'm not obligated to spend thousands of dollars to give you something that you never had, that will become evasive again, and that's it. And you can look at the pictures, and you can't tell what was done and what was not done 5 months ago. Pick any picture and you tell me, if you can just delineate the line of what it was and what it's not.
Well, you're right, we can't tell what it was because you
It was
cut
the,
it down before we,
well, that area was the beach, that was the diving board, that was the fishing area, that's the swimming pool.
yeah,
And
and
ask anybody in town, any DPW worker who's electric company or the DPW people, Public Works, they all know about the pond, they all go fishing there, they all go swimming there. They all grew up in that pond.
well, yeah, I know that, but your contention, the problem is, the way I see it is, your contention is, all you ever took out of there was invasive species. Well, that isn't what your restoration plan is based on. That isn't anything you can prove to us. That isn't anything I'm prepared to assume. Because you took it all out before we could see that. And this is the consequence of doing that.
But you
And
will see
you
the
did
root
this,
base.
And I just wanna.
But my point is, Doug, and you're not listening to
emphasize
me,
something.
you can see the root base.
You did this on land you didn't own. You did this on
Well,
land.
at
that's owned
that
by
time, we
people.
thought we owned it, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. You did it on somebody else's land, the land of the town of Rowley.
Yes.
People of the town of Rowley.
Yes.
So, you gotta comply with your restoration plan. You've had 6 months to do this. You're past the planting season, very nearly.
Like I said, I put a lot of thought into that plan, and I disagree with it.
Well, it's your plan.
Right, it was
I understand
the
that.
contractor that you hired to,
Oh,
and he's the one that's saying these things.
right, and what he says is, this is what you have to do, this is how we do it, you have to go buy all these plants, and you put them in, the plants will cost you over $1,000, and then you gotta do this, this, and this, and this is how the system works. And I get, like a lot of these people, they come into a very pristine area and something happens. I get that, David, I really do. But you're talking about a forested
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
piece of crap, no one has access to it, you can't go over my land, you have no right of way really, other than he bulldozed an area through the wetlands just to get to it. And that's his idea, we're gonna keep an eye on it now, so
Well,
I'm gonna rip down the woods and the wetlands to get to it, so that's an issue.
The only reason that happened is because you prohibited access over your land, but. be
Right,
that
and
as
that
it
proves
may,
my point that you trespassed on my land to start with,
wasn't
and you have no access to my land.
Well, we had this discussion last time,
And
remember?
it proves my point.
No.
You have no
Actually-
access to the land, hence, he had to bulldoze a hole through the forest to get there, or he would have walked on my land, or the land he thought that was his. So it proves my point, gentlemen.
No, it doesn't.
You,
It
oh,
doesn't because.
you don't think, you think he did that, because he had nothing else to do? He blazed a hole
No,
through the
because-
wetlands
No,
because he had no other
He
option?
did that because we asked him to do that.
He had no
because
other
that's his
option.
job.
He had no other option,
Because it's his
he
job
realized
to
he was
monitor.
on my land,
Excuse
so
me,
that's
sir.
the only way to get to it.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Once you had prohibited access to the public,
Which
which you did.
proved my point,
Right.
you accessed my property illegally without a warrant. Gentlemen, that is the premise of everything, that this whole thing started, about the denying of people's rights.
Right, and the last time you were here, I asked you to consider this problem, that you
Yeah.
had allowed access to members of the public until you posted the signs.
That's right.
Members of the public includes Mr. Bazelak and everybody else in this room. So
Now it's
not
and now it's
trespassing.
posted.
Yeah, now it is, so he doesn't go that way.
There you go. And now you
Nor
guys,
does anyone else.
so now you guys violate the laws by tearing down the vegetated wetlands.
So, my suggestion, you got very little planting season left here. My suggestion to you is that you take advantage of it, implement your restoration plan, and, the consequences of doing that are, we're all set. Consequences of not doing it are gonna end up being, the whole thing's gonna get escalated.
I assume it will. because you guys aren't going there, you won't look at the root bases to know exactly what trees were cut, because you're too busy and it's a part-time position. And I'm not high up on that totem pole, and I'm not spending the money.
Just to be
So
clear.
we're
I'm
pretty
not-
much done, gentlemen. Until you guys show up,
Hang on.
I'm gonna appeal
I wanna
everything.
say,
I'm gonna post my land
I wanna say one
for
other
hunting
thing, Peter.
season, and I want no one on my land.
Hang on 1 second before you leave.
And I'm gonna stay here till the end of the movie tonight.
Oh, okay, all right.
But we're
Gathering
done.
up your stuff to leave.
Then I'll have everybody up there
Just to be clear,
to
I
show
certainly,
everybody the property, what's going on.
there's certainly no impediment to any member of the commission who wants to go visit the property, can go visit the property. I
You know what, I want transparency, Doug.
Yep.
It's the only way it's gonna happen, is you show up and look. And you say you don't know, but you can look on the ground and see the roots that were cut. And then you see how it splices and how they graft. You see the prickle bushes growing up again.
So-
You don't see any chainsaws, none of that shit going on.
So let's say this, let's say everybody goes, or somebody goes.
Yeah.
And we see these things. And is that directly contrary to what the plan says, your restoration plan? How is that going to resolve anything? The plan is what the plan is. You paid for the plan.
I did.
Right, and he, as your agent,
And as we sat there and
Said what he
discussed
had
it,
to say.
David, right, then we put a thought into it, even with him. Even with Brent, we're like, once I do this, because you say I have to, for no other reason that you make me do it, because I don't see the logic, it's gonna be overgrown and trashed anyways, because that's the end of it, and you wasted the money.
Well, no, I mean, I think if you
That's the
execute
end
the
of it.
restoration plan in good faith, it turns it into a natural plant community that belongs there in the first place. That's the idea of a
Did
restoration
the
plan.
invasive species take over and choke it and kill it anyways?
No, I don't think so.
well,
Yeah,
it's
if I could
To be
supposed to.
determined,
If I could add a
I
little
see
to
what you're
that,
saying.
because
Yeah.
that's what I do for a living.
yeah.
You could plant petunias all over there, apple trees, anything. And if it's invasive species, I haven't seen the property, but if it's invasive species with vines such as that, by this time next year, you won't be able to see anything that was done.
Well,
So there has to be a management plan, so somebody would have to take care of it constantly.
Excuse me, you're not familiar with the proposed restoration plan, which includes monitoring and pulling of
Any of
any
the.
residual seed stock from the
That,
invasive.
so you'd have to, yeah, you'd have to
It's
do
not a
like Brett said.
one-time thing,
No, it would be
Not
a
at all.
constant.
but that's
but that's what Mr. Sabatini
That's
says he wants to do, is to maintain things so they are as they were, you know, back in the sixties. So if the plan is implemented and it's done correctly, which we suspect that it would probably be since we know Mr. DeRosa and have seen his work, then the plan would continue into perpetuity, at least into the near future, so,
But he says I can't maintain it.
well,
He already said it. They said, so what's your maintenance plan? And Brent says, well, I'm gonna try to get a Boy Scout and go do it. And see if he'll do a project. And I said, well, that's not a maintenance plan, and I'm
We're not
done.
talking about his restoration.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the impacted resource area that he cut and damaged on town property. That's taken totally out of context and had to do with a different situation.
different subject. So, as
But I see
said,
what you're saying, David, and I do agree with that, so.
I mean, it's the only way forward from this, is to execute the restoration plan, restore the property, you know, to a natural plant community, and, you know, move forward. It is your goal, it's our goal. I don't think we disagree on the goal here.
When it's done though, I can't maintain it, you can't maintain it, it's gonna be a crap when we're done. That's my point, so why spend any more money? I shelled out $2,000 already, and that's it, and that's enough.
Could you address that point, Brent?
Didn't DeRosa
That's a point that
address the
concerns me.
invasives and how to deal with them as part of the plan?
Is that a question? Yes.
Yes.
He did,
And
which
what-
means I'd have to rip everything out that's already grown there over the years, plant more stuff in,
But that's the only way to get rid of those things.
and then, but we stop here, that's why I was trying to show you the picture, but you stop on the edge, and right next to it, there's a forest. So we stop here, so we stop there, but that's what you have right next to it. That's just not gonna magically, that massive crowd of invasives is not gonna say, okay, I'm gonna stop here, I'm never gonna go right there. And I plant a plant right there, it's dead. Because it's grown 7 feet in a few months. So if that, all that grows 7 feet in a month,
Just by
that's
clipping
growing
it.
by,
Just by clipping it encourages it to grow more.
Yeah.
Uprooting it is how you get rid
yeah,
of
but
it.
what about
Which
all
is what
this?
Mr. DeRosa's plan calls.
That's all that stays.
Yeah, I think.
You follow me?
And your point is
So
that'll
you,
fall
you
back
fix,
in.
right, you fix this area, and everything else stays huge here, and all the way around it. So why bother doing it? It's all gonna die. That's what I was trying to point out to you.
Yeah, but
If all
Mr.
this grew back in a matter of months, this is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, so much so that to get through, he had to cut down the cedar trees to bulldoze a hole through.
But I thought you were just telling us that your whole plan is to get rid of the invasives.
But it does, but it's only for that little square. Nothing there, or all around it, so it doesn't stop growing. The vines are 50, 60, 70, 80 feet long. They just grow and grow and grow horizontally, they don't grow just up, they go every which way. Through the land, through the ground, right, which then they root more, which is hence why you say, in a restoration plan, you have to go back and rip out the root structure in the ground. It's gonna keep growing in the ground, it just doesn't stop because we cut a 4 by 20 foot area and we stopped it.
But that, as I remember the restoration plan, which I haven't looked at lately, it deals with that.
It deals
Does it
with
not?
stopping the 4 by 10 area and cleaning out the roots in the little square. or
It's
rectangle,
also,
actually.
it's based on a plant community that Mr. DeRosa observed in the area, and it's consistent with that. Am I wrong?
Correct.
That's-
There's an
that's
assumption
my
here,
reading of it.
there's an assumption being stated here, which is not supported by anything presented in evidence, that the adjoining undisturbed plant community is 100% invasives. That is not accurate and not correct.
Really?
There's enough.
I'll tell you what, I'll go cut some down and bring them to you next meeting, that are on my land, because my stake is right there. And I'll go cut down the invasives on my land, Brent, and I'll bring them back to you. Or, you guys can show up and we'll dispute this
You didn't
again.
listen to what I said.
Yeah, you say there's no fact, I have no basis of fact to make that claim, that the invasive species are right next to it on my land. That's what you're saying. And you're trying to make me look like an idiot by saying there's no fact.
That is not what he said.
I said the
Okay.
composition of the plant community adjacent to the area that you cut is not composed 100% of invasive species. That's what I said.
And I don't think it's self-evident that a restoration of the natural plant community is necessarily gonna be overwhelmed by the invasives next to it. It depends on what the community consists of. Mr. DeRosa created a plan that is a restoration plan designed to restore the plant community in the area that's affected. He's the professional in this
In the
situation.
conversation we had, and I'll be happy to bring him back next time, he concurs that it'll get overtaken.
Well, why don't you bring him back next time?
He can get overtaken, I'll have him write up an affidavit and bring it to you guys, so you don't have to wait 2 weeks.
Not an affidavit, but, yeah, bring him next time.
Well,
I'd
that'll
like
be
to
the
hear from
point.
him. He has training in the field that you don't have and we don't have. He's a pretty informed and knowledgeable wetland scientist. He wrote this plan.
I understand that, because I had to.
Well,
And then logically, when you get around to thinking about it, it's like, when you look at it and say how much grows back, and to the left, and to the right of it, you're like, why would I bother? It's not a clean, if it was a clean area, like these people talk about their wetlands area and its fields and it's this and that, I get that.
Well,
But it's not that. You're into a
you know,
wooded swamp,
so my
That's
thought about
overgrown.
this, Mr. Sabatini, is. I
and three
understand the
sides were
point-
more overgrown because this was the
Hang
beach,
on.
the
I
beach
I
area.
understand the point you're making, but I'm not prepared to accept any of the propositions in it coming from you.
Okay.
If they come from Mr. DeRosa, That's a little different, he's trained in the field. All we have from him is a restoration plan, which I presume is designed to restore the affected area. That's the purpose of it,
True,
right?
that is true.
That is what we want you to execute. If he says it's an impractical plan, then he needs to say that to us
Okay.
and propose something else. But he's not here.
All right.
He's given us a plan, but you're not willing to execute it.
That's
We're
right,
stuck.
because we had this conversation about the impracticality of it.
Well, that's in your view. In his view, that may not be the case, but he's not here to say that.
Okay, we talked about it together when we were on the site. And then when I walked up and said, then why are we doing this? He goes, I see your point. I said, why am I spending all this money, Michael, if it's not? His comment was, Brent's comment, I said it probably won't last more than a couple of years. Brent tried to say maybe 3, 4 years. And then DeRosa came back and said, no, probably maybe 2. I said 1. You know, he said 3 or 4, and the other guy said 2. It'll probably, you know, it may last on its own. And then he came up with the idea of, you know, no maintenance plan, and he said, oh, I'll try to get a Boy Scout.
It has a maintenance plan, and it has to. The restoration plan has to have a follow-up.
No, once
plan
it's
built
done,
in.
it's, right, the follow-up
No, but
after
if
you
it-
sign
no,
off,
but no.
that it sits there by itself, that you guys proved that it grew, you know, 6 months, a year later, that it's actually living and not dead, then that's it. And then I
Yeah,
said, well,
and-
what happens after that? And he said, well, maybe I'll get a Boy Scout to go down there
No,
and keep an eye on it.
That is not what he said. He already told us that is not what he said.
Okay.
What Mr. DeRosa said is what I'm interested in.
Okay,
Okay? So far, what we know about Mr. DeRosa's opinion on the subject is what he put in his plan. That's the plan that's gonna get executed one way or another, unless Mr. DeRosa retracts it.
Right.
Because it's the one you gave us, right? It's the one you had prepared.
it is,
Yeah.
because I had to do it.
And
And
those are the facts,
Yeah,
you know, so we have to stick to those facts.
Okay.
well,
So if Mr. DeRosa comes in and says,
does he wants a different plan or
Yeah.
suggests a different plan? I'm just, we can't ignore that plan. We can't ignore the fact that you altered property that didn't belong to you that does belong to the town. We can't ignore those facts. And the plan needs to be implemented unless DeRosa changes it or someone else does.
Well, I'm sure he will then.
Okay.
Pretty simple.
Well, I don't know what else there is to say tonight. I would suggest a motion to continue this to the next meeting, October 21st. In my opinion, you would be well advised to implement the plan by that date, because the planting season is rapidly disappearing. It's a real problem if an enforcement order from May goes uncorrected through a winter season. I have some issues with that, but that's your choice. I'd like to see this on the agenda for the next meeting, and I would certainly like to see Mr. DeRosa at the next meeting.
so, do you understand what he's saying, actually?
Yeah, he doesn't really care about DeRosa's opinion 3 weeks, a month from now, but he wants it done before then, and that's not gonna happen.
Well,
That's your choice.
But I hear what you said. You want to, first you say you'll wait and see what DeRosa says, but by the way, I want it done before DeRosa shows up.
Well, the problem
well, the
is,
reason,
the problem is the planting season is disappearing
Right.
on here. That's not our fault. That's not our fault
Yeah,
at
well,
all. This thing
Now
has
we're
been-
back into the full circle. Who cares about what new thing I might plant, what was nipped? The rose bushes and the stuff that was actually there is growing. That's my point exactly. So, you talk a good storm, but it doesn't make sense.
so, because it's an enforcement order,
Right.
fines can be levied the longer it takes these things to happen. He's basically telling you, you know, it would be a good thing to start, because he would have a problem that might incur other things to happen, like fees, if these things didn't happen as they have been explained by Mr. DeRosa. So you're losing a window of opportunity, which could cause even more burden on you from a standpoint of at least dollars, you know. So he's kinda giving you a chance.
Well, I'll try to get DeRosa to get you a letter fast.
Well, yeah,
That's a first
If you
step.
sent a letter, that'd be fine. But I'd
On
like to see
stationery.
him- I'd like to see him here.
You know,
I'd like to see some
before then.
action on the ground. And I'd like a motion to continue this to the October 21st hearing, which is our next hearing.
So moved.
There a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so October 21st is the next hearing. Anything Mr. DeRosa wants to add to this record, that would be great. I'm happy to hear and review anything he has to say. I would be delighted to see him here. I would have been delighted to see him here at the last meeting or at this meeting. But the next meeting is the next time he can be here, so be delighted to see him then. But, you know, we can't make him come, only you can authorize him to appear for you. So that's your call, just as it's your call whether you take any action on the plan between now and then.
Does it have to be in person?
Well, I don't know, he can send a letter, but I don't know what the letter's gonna say, and I'm not sure it's gonna answer the questions we have.
Well, your biggest thing is what happens once it's done. Will all the crap on each side of it take over? That's the number one
He's
thing.
got to answer that question.
That's the number one question you wanna know. So am I wasting my money or not? Am I
think
wasting
that-
thousands of dollars
I think
to make
we
you
all
guys
do that.
happy for something that's gonna get destroyed in a short period of time? And I'm not willing to do that. I'll spend it on lawyers instead, in publicness,
All right.
than to waste money on other stuff. That's all. That's it. Right, think about it. Why, it's logical, gentlemen, so, in the meantime, you guys can think, who wants to come to the house?
All right, so that matter is continued to October 21st. 21st, yes. Moving on, we have the 8:35 item, which is,
Yes,
I think it's between Rock and Hardwick.
why the house rather than on to the point of the conservation
Which I
plan?
I didn't understand.
Several times tonight, you've wanted us to come to the house.
Yeah, because, well, I meant to the property, to the area, that's what I meant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be off your land.
No, it's up, oh, yeah, 5 feet over, 2 feet over, yeah.
Okay. Just was unclear about that. Thank you.
all right. So this is the 8:35 item on the agenda, continued review of the proposed conservation restriction for the former Girl Scout camp property, 390 Weathersfield Street, F18 parcel/lot 7, proposed town land acquisition from the Girl Scouts of Eastern Mass. And we have Mr. Santamena, I think it is, yep, present from Essex County Greenbelt. And we have a draft conservation restriction, which has been provided to the members by Brent with comments highlighted. My understanding is the highlighted comments are based in part upon town council's input and in part upon the input of the commission from the last time this was before us. Have you seen his revised draft? No. So let's see, is there anything you'd like to start off with, or shall we just go through this?
Well, I guess just a couple of things.
Yeah.
One is I apologize for not appearing at your previous meeting. I didn't realize I was intended to be
No, that's okay.
here. Brendan had sent me the agenda, but I didn't realize that was
You
when
know,
I was supposed to be
the
here.
fact is that it had to go to town council
Yeah,
anyway.
right.
It would have been, I'm sure you would have informed us about something, but there
Yeah.
was no way we were gonna reach a conclusion anyway, so.
Right.
Okay.
The only thing I just might say at the outset is, Judy Pickett has a question about page 11, section 7B. And she's asking that we refer to a registry book and page number where the corporation papers are recorded. I checked with our executive director, and we don't believe that our corporation papers have ever been recorded at the registry of deeds. This is on her email.
Oh, yeah, okay, page 12, it actually is.
Yeah. So it's a little bit, it's a new question. No one's ever raised it before. What I do have is a copy of our articles of organization that's submitted to the Secretary of State's office, which includes all the language that I think you would want to establish that we are a conservation organization. And I think this is what we would submit as
Yeah.
the documentation Judy's probably looking for.
Well, that's probably what she meant, actually.
Yeah. You can't suspect that was.
Yeah, you can record them, but there wouldn't have been any reason to.
Right.
That I could think of.
Right.
And if you do record them, then if you amend them, you have to record the
Re-record,
amendment,
right.
so then that gets to be.
And this
asked.
was restated back in '87, so they haven't
Yeah,
changed
so
since.
probably just referring to this
Yeah.
document would
Yeah.
be sufficient instead of a registry.
Yeah. I don't know, do you wanna go through the document itself, or do you wanna address the issues, the questions that she raised in her email first?
Yeah,
Well, you can read the ones, you don't have the email.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, this-
but we can go through the document.
Okay,
I think a lot of them are really matters of form.
yeah, I think that's right.
Could I just say something before we do?
Yeah.
She has at least two places in here in page 12 and 14 where she says town council has concerns regarding the paragraph, and on 14, town council.
That's what I said.
Questions this, I don't see how we need to spend an awful lot of time on this, unless we have some idea what she's getting this, and most of the other things are pretty much edits or deletions and
Except for one thing.
Right,
that
well,
I
it
don't think
refers,
we- yeah.
it refers to some of these statements in the email that I shared with Dave
Okay.
that we can relate to the commission.
Okay, so your comments, town council has concerns, are
Referring to the,
to some email comments?
yeah, instead of
Okay.
my just cutting and pasting and
Yep.
sticking that in, because it wasn't really meant to be edited into the document, it was just meant to highlight an area where there was a question and get
So-
that question out.
So looking at the document, it seems like comments, edits on page 1, 2, and 3 are essentially editorial in nature.
Yeah,
I don't think they need any discussion.
No.
Do you agree?
yes.
Yeah, okay.
On page 4, I wonder if
Yeah, that's
the insertion there may be missing a word, as it's for maintenance or, I thought maybe there should be an or for the disabled in there.
or for
Right,
access
maintenance
for the
purposes or for.
access
or
for
for
the
access.
It's the point of access by members
Yeah.
of the community
Right,
who are disabled.
motorized wheelchairs, we didn't wanna,
Yep.
we
Okay.
wanted that to.
So that if it said, if the underlined item was for maintenance or for disabled access, I think that would work.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, Brent, I think, dropped in some alternate, basically forestry,
On page 6?
on the bottom of page 5.
Yeah, I think your pagination's a
Your
little different
pagination
than
is
ours.
different.
Oh,
than
okay.
ours.
Yeah,
Well, so it's, yeah, B1,
one,
That's
yeah.
correct.
and, yeah, we're fine with that alternate language.
Yeah, okay, I thought you would be. Likewise too, I would
Yeah.
imagine, right?
Yep,
Again, 5's just a sort of a
Yeah.
more accurate term,
yep.
invasive instead of exotic.
Mhm.
And then item 9, that's getting at the same, except here again, I'm not sure what the wording is.
Well, I'm actually putting just question marks in there, trying to draw attention to saying, but not expansion, when we've already had discussions with some folks who have an interest in those buildings, who have pointed out the fact that they would need to make some modifications for handicapped access.
Okay,
And so therefore, depending on how you either define or don't define the word expansion,
Mhm.
that could be considered an expansion. So I was pointing out here
Yeah.
that if we wanted to narrowly categorize things, we would say then work to improve handicapped access, or to meet handicapped access requirements would be allowed
Yeah.
to the buildings. Or the other way we saw this kind of thing handled was with the golf course, where they expressed an envelope. In other words, the dimensions of the building
Right.
were such and such, and they said that we would possibly put an addition or expand that building by 5 or 10%. And
Yeah.
so you had an envelope where they could do things like a ramp or
Yeah.
a small deck.
I mean, I think that our thought on this is that our baseline documentation report will probably include dimensions of all the structures
Right.
on the property. I was thinking we might just add a provision that basically says, provided, however, that such improvements or modifications as may be necessary to provide handicapped access are allowed. Something along those lines. We
Right.
wouldn't, I don't think we would view those as an expansion in any case, but
Well, right.
I'm fine just putting that in as an
Yeah.
explicit thing that,
I'm trying to create the door
Yeah.
so it's understood
yeah,
that was possibly anticipated, but not knowing that our crystal ball won't tell us exactly what it is.
right.
I think we're all on the same page, we just need.
So, yeah, so if you
language
wanna
that everybody
send
likes.
us a proposed
Yeah.
language for that, then.
Yeah.
It might be useful to expand it slightly by saying interior or exterior access. In case the literalist, if you wanna build a ramp outdoors, or whether you've gotta do it within the confines of the existing building envelope, it's just.
Yeah,
Well, and you also, you get, a lot of handicapped access issues are interior, like with the doorways and bathroom access and things
yeah,
like
which
that.
we're not addressing at all, obviously, here, so.
Right, yeah. Yeah, okay, that's a good point. So let's see, on my page 8. So I don't know
There's,
what we're getting at here.
let me go back to numeral 10.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Brent, it looks like you swapped out,
Actually, I didn't, that was town council.
okay, it says Conservation Commission, so,
I understand.
okay.
Town council.
I'm fine with that, I'm fine with swapping those out, to me, they're the two
Right.
sides of the same coin.
Yep.
That may or may not be the interpretation that the folks at DCS have,
Understood, but
so,
permitted is apparently used elsewhere in the document, and one of the things town council wanted to establish was a consistency of verbiage, which is,
verbiage, yeah,
which is why the citations for Mass General laws were.
yeah, it's fine,
So.
that's good. Doug, you an attorney?
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say something derogatory about attorneys, but.
It's all right. Hear it all the time. Nobody likes attorneys except their own.
Except when you need one.
So attorney or not, I don't know what Judy is getting at with the adverse possession language. Unless someone else in the room can explain the thinking here, maybe you can, right?
The thinking behind deleting it.
Yeah. I just don't.
She commented.
She's deleting the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right,
But
right,
not-
the town cannot, well, I think this is a comment that relates to that, there was also a problem, the town cannot divest itself in whole or in part of the property without votes of town meeting, and Article 97 diversion requiring legislative approval, and so on and so. This section is outdated and quaint at best and misleading to all parties.
No.
I mean, she's right about Article 97, but I don't see what it has to do with adverse possession.
You know, I think I know what she means, which is that I don't think,
I mean, towns aren't subject to it.
yeah, I don't think you can adverse possess against the
Right.
sovereign,
Right.
against the municipality or the state. So it's irrelevant. This would be relevant only for a private property.
Yeah,
Grant
and
order.
that,
Makes
that's
sense.
the bias
Okay.
of this document as well.
Yep,
private,
that makes
so-
sense. All right, I
Last
get it
point
now.
came up in conjunction with the police chief of Revere's property. And, just to point out the consistency there, but anyway,
Oh, that's interesting.
it occurred to me in looking
We
at
had
this,
other reasons we wanted to do that. Yeah, but you're right.
that it appears from something that's in this document that this is modeled or taken from a Georgetown conservation restriction, and
The
perhaps there was,
signature,
perhaps there
signatory
was
page
something in
is-
the Georgetown properties that led them to believe that there may have been an adverse possession issue somewhere on the premises. Anyway, I agree that it doesn't make sense to
Yeah.
put it in.
Right. It's language we didn't used to have in any restriction, we've been putting it in the last few years, so.
Excuse me, on this page 8, her comments were, town cannot make this statement, the adverse possession.
Well, it's just sort of another way of saying it.
So that, fine, that comes out.
All right, section VI, section 6, assignment by grantee. I assume she also, Judy also has suggested
What's
this
the
be
page number?
deleted. Well, on my page, it's 11,
Yeah, that's,
but it's VI.
yeah.
And I think this comes up later in the document also.
Yeah, she says, just a couple of observations, page 11, section VI, assignment. I've never before seen this in a CR. The town should not permit the grantee to assign the CR without the grantor's written assent. Is there any thought that the Greenbelt would want to transfer to another entity? Better yet, delete section VI. The Attorney General's office would probably consider a transfer a disposition, quote unquote, under Article 97. That's her comments in regards to that.
It is pretty standard language in our restrictions, I guess I'd say that much. We have no specific intention of assigning the CR, I can certainly represent that. I think the thought here is just in the event at some point in the distant future, if something untoward were to happen to the Great Mountain Association, it would be good to have a provision whereby we could assign it to a qualified entity.
Well, we could just add without the consent of the grantor.
Yeah,
I'm sure you'd have no issue with that.
no,
So maybe that would be satisfactory.
You should call
I think there's
Judy
another clause
Pickett.
in here
Yeah.
that does that. But-
Yeah, I believe there's another paragraph that addresses this, to some degree.
I think that the concern that again, the folks at DCS have articulated in the past is they, as an alternative, seeing a restriction just be effectively abandoned, they'd like to see the ability to
Want to see some
assign
option.
it, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And so if at some point in the future this is just a nuisance to town, they wanna get rid of it, they would like to see the mechanism where it's possible to assign it rather
Yeah.
than just kill it by virtue of saying, well, there's nowhere else we can
Or if
transfer
Greenbelt
it.
ceases to exist for some
Yeah,
unforeseeable reason,
right,
they don't wanna lose all the CRs that it holds.
right.
That makes sense. The other place it shows up is on my page 12, section C, required notification of transfer. That's the same, addressing the same question. In, let's see, VIIC, VII.
This is where that comment I read earlier, the town cannot divest itself in whole or in part of the property without votes at town meeting.
The town is the grantor,
She
right?
just
Yeah.
said,
Town is grantor.
he said this section is outdated and quaint at best and misleading to all parties.
Blunt.
Okay. I'll take it as a compliment at this
This,
point.
this one applies to both grantor and grantee,
Yeah.
section C.
And I don't, you know,
Okay.
we can say what we want here, but yes, if it's subject to Article 97, then it's subject to Article 97, so, you know.
Right.
One would presume that the town wouldn't do that without going through the
Well,
steps.
Well, the state, yeah, the state wouldn't allow it. Not to mention they make you come up with at least twice as much acreage
Right,
for anything you wanna convert.
yeah.
right. They'd have to discover
We don't
oil
like
under it.
losing open space.
And we've had one situation in town dating back down by the waterfront whereby we swapped property with a waterfront owner and acquired, and that required going through all these hoops with the state.
Right. I remember that.
So it's doable.
Yeah.
Well, we did it with the cell tower situation specifically.
There
The what?
too. The cell
Cell
towers.
towers were fine.
So I guess I'm assuming if we come up with language that's acceptable to everyone on assignment, we can put back in the deleted A from,
Well, I'll get you the contact information
okay,
for Judy Pickett.
But, yeah, at least from my perspective, I should say, making it subject to consent of the grantor would pretty
Yeah.
much take care of it.
yeah,
Because in that situation, if Greenbelt ceased to exist or ceased to be in the business of holding CRs, we as a town would have a very strong interest in consenting to that, making sure the CR didn't get extinguished for some reason.
right.
Okay. I think that the last deleted one on page 13, which is IXA, I think that again addresses that same
Yeah.
assignment issue.
Yeah. You've got a note in here, Brent, on F, execution of instruments, town council questions this. Is that just a, is that a?
Just a second here. Well, she put a question mark and underline, appoint the grantee their attorney in fact to execute.
Okay,
So that's something you need to talk with her about.
okay.
Yeah. That's all she gave me was a big question mark in the margin and then underline those 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 words.
I think that was basically the
Okay.
extent of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I sent you separate signatory Word documents
Right,
made up with the correct
right.
commissioners and selectmen. Figuring they could just be pulled into the document.
Yep,
And on page 15, any big change, but she suggested that the addresses include some type of title so that a mailing to the town wouldn't just float around looking for who it went to, that
Right.
would even name the town administrator.
yep. Sure.
Now, the one big thing that I didn't know about, therefore didn't do any editing on, was how to handle the camp. How to, and by handle the camp, I mean anticipate their expanded usage, or whether they've got to do, say, this end of the property or whatever, and then the various questions that came up about access and getting to the, quote-unquote, getting to the backland, if I can use that term.
Mm-hmm,
You know, since the property has that funny little constriction in
Right.
it, it sort of looks like it's got a head and then the body, which is mostly the forested open space, so.
well,
So it's just a thing to ponder,
right,
and you, through Greenbelt, seem to have more experience with some other properties, at least I thought that's what I judged from our conversations, that you've had experience with other groups coming in onto.
not in this, I mean, the only real example, I think, is the Camp Dennison over in Georgetown. We're currently working on a project up in Newbury where there's gonna be an ongoing educational, environmental ed program on property that we're
Is
gonna.
that the boat camp?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's in progress, so that's evolving. I mean, my only thought in terms of the CR is that we just need to make sure there's enough flexibility within the CR to allow, for example, another access to be created in the event that you wanted to have one that was dedicated to whoever's operating programs in the property and one that would be for general public access simultaneously.
Right, because of their concern about
Yeah,
the issue with children.
security and
Traffic,
everything else.
and security,
Yeah.
yeah, makes sense.
So I can take a look at this and see if we think we have that covered.
Well, I guess I'm kind of suggesting that maybe that's also part of the subject matter for a conversation with town council. I mean, I
That
don't
strikes me
know.
as more of a management issue than a.
Well, I'm only saying that just because in my numerous contacts on these types of things with Attorney Pickett, I found that she's got a lot of experience and very knowledgeable, and it's entirely possible. I haven't had an opportunity to have this conversation with her, but I saw, since there were a number of things that were question marks that were gonna have to be sort of a conversation type thing, that maybe that would be brought up and mentioned, because maybe she's got some experience or something about it. I mean, it's just really hard with these things to try and anticipate what the flexibility is that you
Right.
need, but also what won't trigger the state saying, oh, no.
Right, and I mean, I basically tried to cover the camp uses and activities as broadly as I could in numeral 4 in the reserve rights, which is hiking, wildlife observation, other passive, non-commercial, outdoor recreational and educational activities consistent, blah, blah, blah. So that covers basically the activities. And then by creating essentially an envelope around that whole lobe of the property where all the infrastructure is, that's, in my mind, that's the designated camp
Right.
area, is that entire part of the property.
Correct, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, it's a pretty broad, that's a pretty broad provision in there.
What about the water line that runs out to the baseball field?
I didn't know there was one.
It's
I'm sorry?
it's
I
an,
didn't know there was one.
it's an
Yeah.
above ground,
It's sort of like we
Seasonal.
dealt with the temporary,
Mhm.
not a hard infrastructure connection to the community garden. It actually falls in that same kind of category.
Yeah,
It literally
Seasonal.
is a black plastic water line that runs across the surface of the ground that goes out
And
to
there's
a
a-
couple spigots out there that they drain.
and there's a privy out there as well that they maintain. Whatever that means.
it does say water lines. You did say water lines. so,
Yeah, but that's specific to the designated camp area.
You know, I suppose that's right. And the baseball field's really
Is,
not.
is the only, so why don't I add a paragraph that addresses other infrastructure elements not within,
Outline, so to
Yeah.
speak. Making it real clear that
Yeah.
they're
there
not
aren't
meant
many
to
of
be
them.
hardened or whatever and permanent, but they're meant to be temporary and seasonal.
yeah,
But they're also not meant to be prohibited if they exist.
Correct.
yeah, no, good point.
Okay.
Alright,
Okay.
so Brent, you wanna shoot me Judy's,
Yes.
I probably have it, but,
Well, no, I need to contact her.
okay,
Yeah, we gotta give her, she's gotta have authority to
yeah,
talk to you,
right,
you know, bill us,
yeah,
whatever,
Yeah.
whatever their deal is.
Yeah.
You gotta follow that rule.
sure.
Okay.
Alright, well, I guess I should have started by saying that we're excited to be working with the town on this great project, and,
Yeah,
Very
we're
pleased
excited.
to be-
I think it's a great,
yeah,
it's a great thing.
it's,
It's a neat property.
yeah, and when we started this process with the Girl Scouts, which was probably 2.5 years ago, we were not super confident we were gonna be able to come up with a good conservation outcome, so we're
Yeah.
pleased to be here.
I can remember sitting around on this board from time to time worrying about that big parcel there and
Yep,
what's gonna happen to it.
yeah, and I, you know, I
How is this
gotta
gonna play out?
give the Girl Scouts credit for being, you know, patient and
Yep.
pretty flexible in terms of what they were willing to do, so,
Yeah, especially them.
yeah.
You've requested, correct me if I'm wrong, $15,000 to do the baseline report and perpetual monitoring.
Correct, yeah.
That was approved by the Community Preservation Act Committee last Thursday, I don't know if you
Okay,
read that.
no, I hadn't heard that, but that's great, thank you. I had sent Debbie a letter request for that, so. Great,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, good. Thank you for coming in.
You bet.
I would suggest we continue this to
Yeah,
the
well,
next meeting.
Timeframes?
Well,
Yeah, next
just
meeting
do it to the
seems
next
reasonable.
meeting, just so if
Yeah.
we need to continue it further, then fine, but
Okay.
just sort of check in.
And it's David, right?
Yeah.
David, yeah. You should probably just check with Brent whether you need to be here next meeting.
Yeah.
You know, unless we have specific questions that only you could answer, probably not,
Yeah,
would be my guess.
Yep.
Just,
I mean, happy to come, but if you don't need me, then I
Right.
can just
uh,
deal with it all. Otherwise, I mean, we would like to keep the process moving and get this
Right.
submitted to DCS for their review as soon as we
right, this
can.
is moving along faster than some of these.
Yeah.
so.
All right, thanks
Okay.
again.
See
You don't
ya.
wanna buy the Moran property, do you?
Moran, Herrick.
Weathersfield Street.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Moran's up for sale.
I know.
Oh.
All right, good night.
Good night.
Good night. So I need a motion to continue the, review of the conservation restriction to the next meeting, which is October 21st, 2014.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against? That motion carries. And let's see, we do have one more item on the agenda, but I think I saw an email requesting that they be rescheduled.
Yes. They asked for a continuance of that informal discussion for the October 21st meeting.
Do we have an email, or should I just?
Yeah, actually, I got a voicemail on
You
it,
got a
so
voicemail?
no, there
All right,
wasn't
okay.
even an email on it.
So
just a voicemail.
on the 840 item, which was informal discussion of proposed development concept plan for land off Church Street, map 24, parcel 137, lot 1 by David Clark. We received a telephone request today that matter be postponed to the October 21st, 2014 meeting. It's really just an informal discussion, so I'm not sure.
They're
we
gonna
need
bring
a
in
vote.
a concept plan.
Yeah.
So.
But I don't think we need a vote, but let's just have a vote anyway. So do I have a motion to postpone the informal discussion to October 21st?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Okay. Good. So Brent, what else we got?
In regards to, just kind of checking in, I believe I sent around a site visit report for the Weathersfield Street conservation area.
Caparelli?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so, went by there late yesterday, everything except the post and rail fence.
Right. I went by there late today and the post and rail fence
So I'll have
still
to-
there, but
I'll have to touch base with them and find out
so
if
they're,
they've got some kind of timeline or anticipation.
didn't she say to you that
She told me,
within the week,
well,
something would happen on that?
yeah,
Okay.
well, she thought,
Yeah. Well, that's-
so, and wanted to know if they could just take it out. And I said, yeah, we're just looking for it to be off of the municipal property. If you don't care to reinstall it on your
Right.
side of the property boundary, then that's fine. You don't have to. So, at that point, it's not signage or the boundary of the no-cut notice.
Right, right, it's just their
It
fence.
was just, yeah, it was just a fence to,
Right.
and actually it inadvertently got put within the construction easement, but at the time we discovered it during the certificate of compliance request, that property was in the bank's possession, it was private property, so it wasn't our,
Even our issue.
it wasn't our issue. It was noted at the time that we were examining it, but that was something between those two private property owners,
Right.
not us.
All right. I had a question for you, Brendan, about an email. There's an exchange of emails, or maybe just one email from you to Mr. DeCoulis about something to do with valves. I couldn't, we had some inquiry about, is there any valves with it? I just couldn't figure out.
Westford and Sampson, John Secor asked me about the terminology to be put on signage for the emergency shut-offs for the basins
Oh, it was
at the
DeCoulis,
water
okay.
filtration plant.
Yep, okay.
And they proposed what I thought was a little lengthy, and it also called for you to be making a judgment as to whether a pollutant had been released or whatever. And I said, when we had done the project that still has not been implemented, the granite countertop people, we had talked about this and just said, you know, emergency shut-off.
We had
For
it
the
somewhere
basins.
else too, where is it? It's the.
And also, I think for maybe,
The new landscape.
yeah, maybe artistic landscaping in their
Artistic
building
landscaping,
too.
yeah. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
we just
have
called
that.
for
Right.
relatively simple terminology. We just said, this is the emergency shut-off, so that if you're told to go close the emergency shut-off, you just
Here's
go
where it
find
is.
the lever that's got that tag on it, and you just do it. You don't make a decision about whether it's a pollutant that got spilled or anything else.
So somebody above your pay grade is probably making that decision.
Right, well, they're
Yeah.
supposed to have
That's the idea.
an emergency, they're supposed to have an employee training program for emergency response.
Actually, was that your email that said possibly in Spanish would be a good idea too? I thought that was a good idea. I mean, you just, you know, you don't know who's gonna get sent out there to do it.
Well,
but-
right, I mean, lots of folks, especially in this area, there's lots of
Portuguese might be better.
Portuguese, Brazilians.
Well, Spanish is, you can't really have 5 languages.
Yeah.
No,
That's the
Thai,
thing.
Japanese.
Yes, Russian, Czech, you name it these
I
days.
can't believe the size of the building they're putting on that landscape.
It's amazing how much they fit in there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's actually, it's an interesting looking building. It's kind of strange construction. I guess it's, what's it made out of, steel? Is
Yeah.
it Steel frame, it's
Standard
all
steel
steel.
frame.
Yeah, it's just kind of a different surface, maybe. Maybe it's just the angle that we're looking at it from. I don't know.
It has some odd angles to it,
Maybe
it's not your
having-
typical rectangular building,
No,
it's
it
just,
sure isn't.
yeah.
Maybe having worked in Newburyport so long, you're not used to the new construction
No,
method.
no. Spent too long in New England.
It's got a roof that instead of it being flat, slopes off to the back side.
Yeah.
Quite a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah, single slope, not a,
Salt.
not a gabled roof. Yeah, it's like a salt
it's
pond.
better than a flat roof.
Mm.
I assume this is required appropriate.
This is,
Water
Yeah,
infiltration.
we did.
a lot we cleared, this new landscaping firm, it's, it was about, you know, Swenson's granite.
Yeah.
works.
111
Oh,
Newburyport
yeah,
Trail.
yeah, yeah,
Artistic,
yeah, sorry.
artistic
It's on
landscape.
the
Right
east side
across
of the
from
highway.
Down East Ice Cream.
Right.
Or Down River
across
Ice
from the
Cream.
ice cream
Right.
company.
Down River.
Where that little, there was a little house there,
Yeah, it used to be a little white house that sat right up against the road.
right up against the highway.
Yeah,
Like it
Johnny
just-
Shade on that property.
Yeah, I think that name rings a bell. And
Yeah.
then it was empty for a long time, and so this guy finally bought that property and doing something with it. All right, anything else? Good. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned.